Hello.
Hola.
Bonjour.
Привет. 你好.
Hello and welcome to Language with Chu. This is part 3 of the series on sound and complexity, or sounds and meaning. And if you haven't watched the previous 2 parts, I recommend that you do that because I'm following up on that. Click right here and you'll see them, and I'll leave the links at the bottom as well. So let's go back to how to find meaning in sounds. This one is another book. It's in Spanish, but actually you can find it in English. I believe the title is Romance Didn't Start with Latin or something like that. Just look for the author and you'll find it. That's another topic for another video too, the how or why she thinks, and is pretty convincing about it, that Latin is not the mother of Romance languages. But what I want to pick from this book in relationship to sound is that she quotes philologists and linguists who have taken names of places. Names of places are usually the ones we assume are the most arbitrary, or maybe they have a historical trace somewhere, but we don't think that Paris means anything, or London, right? Usually you just take it as a proper name and that's it. Well, what these people did was divide the different names of places, which you see in this column, and again they don't mean anything in theory, and then they took a syllable that they had in common, and they looked at the landscape, and by looking at the landscape they saw that, say for example, these places all have to do with water. Then the ka places had to do with rock. Rock. Okay, so could that relate to some actual words? Yeah, in Spanish, roca, coral, calcio, etc. Those have to do with stone, something rigid. And the towns that are full of stone or coral or whatever have the ka sound, etc. And these are thousands of words that then gave each of these particles a meaning. So then what happens when you go, for example, and take a simple name? This is a town next to Barcelona. And if you go by the general assumption, you say, okay, it either has to do with Valerius, some kind of Roman person, general, whatever, that went to that town, or with Valerian root, except Valerian root wouldn't show up throughout the whole year, so there would be times when the landscape was bare, or that wouldn't serve as a landmark or anything. So then, if you use the particles that I just told you about and combine their meaning, it becomes a lot more interesting. A name that seemed completely arbitrary or random, or maybe historical or whatever, ends up being all these meanings that you can see here. And the town just happens to be in a big valley and is the confluence of several rivers, and so it's surrounded by water, it's big, etc. So it's a bit of a coincidence when you see so many patterns like this all over and over, in even simple words. For example, she talks about the word calabaza. In Spanish, it's pumpkin. And when you break it into these particles, you end up with something that says hard water container. And that's the use of pumpkin in many Spanish-speaking countries. Actually, traditionally in many countries, it was used as a water container. You dry the pumpkin and you use it as a water container. Still today. So a word that sounds completely random, nobody knows where it comes from, becomes something that chunk by chunk has meaning. Another example is the word slave, which supposedly comes from Latin slavus, except that in Latin slave was servus, not slavus, so that's already kind of iffy. And then somehow this k sound appears because all the Latin languages share it, and even German. They have that k sound added to the word esclavo, esclav, etc. If you use the particles, the same kind of particles, you end up with these 4, and each one means S is usually associated with words that had to do with used to be, ex, like as in ex-minister, then C, living being or human being, la, related to, and like we saw here, the LL, union, meeting, something that relates things, links, and links things, and then here you have free and unbound. So if you combine them together, you get something along these lines. Used to be free human. Well, what's a better name for a slave than used to be a free human? You see, so even these particles could actually have a lot of meaning. The author speculates that that they could be that all the Romance languages and others shared a common ancestor, which that was an agglutinative language. That means it's a language that collects all these little chunks that you see on the screen, for example, and all these chunks have meaning, and they glues them together. Just to simplify what that type of language is, I don't know if it's that. It could be. It could be that languages before used to all be agglutinative, but I tend to think that it's not so much the structure, the type of language they were, as it was this this knowing what sounds conveyed, or these choosing sounds for what they conveyed. So so far we've seen two theories: phonosemantics by Margaret Magnus, and this one from Carmen Huertas. And I'm moving on to the third one, so stay tuned for part 4. See you in a bit.